Hello, my loves. So, the live I'm going to do today is on trauma. So, I would suggest that for those of you perhaps that have dealt with a lot of trauma or are in a place or a space in your life where you are not comfortable hearing about it or thinking about it, that maybe you pin this to watch for later. So, there's my trigger warning. So my name is Cassandra McAllen. Thanks for joining me today. And as many of you who follow me or study with me know, I am a trauma expert. And that is not only because I have studied it for all these years, but in many ways, even more importantly, I have lived it. I have, in fact, based my entire life up to fairly recently, actually, as a trauma survivor. I saw myself as a phoenix rising from the ashes of my childhood. I was resilient. For you Gen Xers like me, if you remember the toy Weebles from the 70s, I was their tagline. Weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. My personal motto for most of my life was the Latin phrase, vulneratus non victus, which means wounded but not conquered, or bloodied but unbowed. I saw myself as someone who could survive anything, and I did. I survived deliberate torture by my father, both mental and physical. I survived cult-like indoctrination and sexual abuse by my stepfather. I had so many horrific experiences that I have lost count of the number of times I attempted to take my own life since the first time at the age of 4. I found life to be a pure struggle. And after my last suicide attempt in my early 20s, I just kept living out of pure spite and stubbornness up until the birth of my child at 31. Now, I know they say you shouldn't live for your child, but I'm unashamed to say that she was the first thing that had ever happened to me that actually made me want to live. And her birth catalyzed the beginning of my career and my studies of the healing arts and psychology and trauma and thought work. When I realized after she was born that pure survival wasn't enough, I needed to heal so I could actually live and be the mother that I wanted to be and that she deserved. Now that I've been in practice for almost as long as she's been alive, I can say that I'm no longer surviving or even just living, but actually thriving and helping people find their own journey through pain, suffering, illness, and disease has been such a powerful practice that it has really been what has inspired my entire life. And I want to share with you today some of the things I teach for those of you that suffer and want to free yourself. So, one of the things I had to realize was that I viewed every experience of my life through a lens of my trauma. Now, this probably sounds dramatic, but that doesn't make it not true for all of us. Imagine that you're at the eye doctor's and they're having you look through those lenses at the letterboard. Now, imagine that those lenses have an imperceptible and transparent image on them. So everything you see becomes based on what occurred before. Each experience in life is colored and affected by memories that we don't even realize that we're looking through. These images create our basic beliefs and expectations of what the world holds for us and what will happen to us. how much hope we have, how much faith. Perhaps you find that you have some when it comes to certain things and none when it comes to others. Each time you have a belief that bad things will happen around any part of your life, I can assure you that you're looking through the lens of your past and gazing into your future with it. Every negative belief you hold, we hold, is based on the past. The present is just an experience. It's not a predictor. When we believe bad things will happen, we have trust issues or reoccurring experiences surrounding the same types of fears, or we struggle with anxiety, pain, or depression. It all has to do with past trauma. And it doesn't matter how severe your trauma was or wasn't. It actually took me years to realize the severity of mine. Living through traumatic events often takes on a kind of commonplace or expected feel. We minimize it in order to rationalize it and in order to not be broken by it. I cannot even tell you how many times I might have described a horrific past event to someone in a monotone voice who sobbed to hear it, while I looked at them thinking, surely they're overreacting. I mean, it wasn't that bad. I couldn't actually allow myself to think of it as bad for many years because I was afraid to. So instead of releasing or integrating or healing, I just kept on surviving. And trauma doesn't have a value system. It just is. I like to think of it like spice. For some people, like me, something can be incredibly, uneatably hot. And for others, they might not even be able to taste it. It doesn't matter if your particular spicy childhood seems mild or hot to anyone else but you. And if you're still unable to free yourself from it, then baby, it was hot. I've also learned that there can be a great deal of unconscious ego investment in pain and suffering. Like I mentioned, I was attached to my survival ability and resilience. It was a part of who I was. And for so many people, the large part of their sense of self is intimately connected to their problems. And whether they occurred in childhood or were due to a failed relationship or financial ruin, it is who we are and what we had to survive, and often will be damned before we let it go. In many cases, even though it might seem completely irrational, the last thing we want is to become free of it. Because that pain, trauma, wanting is our identification of self. It is who we think we are. We lived through it. It created us. So to let it go, to finally free ourselves of looking through that lens of the past into the future, would destroy the ego. Thus, our mind tells us that it would destroy our sense of ourselves. And our identification is inexorably linked and locked as one with our painful past, until it isn't. So, one of the first tools I ask when someone tells me something they believe or know to be true that also goes directly against their stated wants or wishes for themselves or their lives is, when did you first learn to believe that? This is an excellent question to ask yourself, because it takes the fearful belief out of the present and places it where it belongs, in the past. do the discovery on these limiting beliefs each time they pop up. Now you might ask, how do I know I'm thinking a limiting belief born from past trauma? Well, check in and ask yourself how you feel when you're thinking the thought. If you feel scared or angry, sad, defeated, or depressed, then that thought is in contradiction to your greatest and highest good. It is not a thought that is based on the present moment. It is not your highest truth. It is not in alignment with the beliefs of your highest self. It is you looking through a shadowed lens of what happened before and seeing a replication of it happening again. Now, you may find, like me, it's hard to release these fearful thoughts. In some cases, they might even feel presentient, like they're telling your future to you, but they're not. They're a dirty vision of what can be a completely clear future. Your ego will fight you, though. So don't be surprised when you try to challenge letting a belief go and it tells you you can't. Or letting a memory go and your mind kicks in and fights to hold on to it because, damn it, you were victimized. Trust me, this sense of self that you have connected to your pain and problems is not who you are. So challenge these beliefs. Find the core memory and lock that shit up if you can't just let it go yet. Bury it in a safe 6 feet underground and free yourself to be able to see tomorrow with all the possibility it holds for your new future. Now, I started this live by telling you that I have just recently been able to fully free myself, as much as I can tell, from my trauma. And sure, thoughts and memories may pop up here and there, but you know what? I no longer care. And that's just it. I don't care anymore. I don't care what happened in the past. It's not who I am. So for 2024, let's all let our egos find new things to chew on, like how remarkable we are, like how we can manifest anything we want, most especially different from what we have had or have believed to be true until just this moment. And with this clarity of vision, you can now create what you want and truly deserve. Just take a breath. Thank you for joining me. As always, if you have questions, I'll put a link in the chat where you can message me privately and talk with me. And I just want you to know that I love you, and I want you to love you and free yourself from this moment. Okay. All right, well, that's it for today. Take care of yourself for me.